Hello, everyone, and welcome to Schwab Coaching. My name is Cameron May. I'm a Senior Manager of Trading and Derivatives Education here at Schwab, and this is Getting Started with Thinkorswim. And today we're going to be talking about news. News can really just push a stock, it can push the markets. So a lot of traders like to keep a keen eye on developing headlines. I want to talk today on the Thinkorswim desktop platform about 6 tools that might help us quickly find headlines, developing news, and maybe even place trades. It's going to be an interesting discussion with each of these tools, or with some of the tools. We're going to be demonstrating how to place example trades attendant to that developing news. Should be an interesting 45 minutes ahead of us. Before we get to that, though, let me first of all say hello to everybody who's chatting in already. Great to see all the familiar names. I think there are one or two might be new out there, but hello there, Richard and Eva, Robert and Olga. Life in the Fast Lane, and everybody else. Thanks for joining us week after week. We always appreciate your attendance and your contributions to these discussions. If you happen to be among those who are here for the very first time, I want to welcome you as well. And if you're watching on the YouTube archive after the live stream has concluded, enjoy the recording. It's a great way to watch these webcasts. But if you'd like to be here in the live stream audience, this is a Wednesday webcast series. We kick things off promptly at 2 Eastern time. You're certainly invited to join us. We'd love to have you here. Now, I also want to let you know that my very good friend Barb Armstrong is hanging out in the chats on YouTube. She's going to be keeping an eye on any questions that come in. If I can't get to those very quickly, Barb is going to be there to pick up my slack. Thanks for having me back there, Barb. Barb and I would also like to issue an invitation. Barb's already done this in the chats for those who are here live, to follow us on social media. You can find and follow Barb and me on X and on LinkedIn. You can find Barb on X at Barb Armstrong CS. You can find me on X at Cameron May CS. You can also, of course, pop over to LinkedIn. Just go to linkedin.com/in and then /Cameron May CS will take you right to my profile. You can give me a follow there. But let's get into this discussion. Of course, as we do, we need to bear in mind that trading and investing involves risk. So bear these important disclosures in mind, please. All corporate or issuer names and market data shown are for illustrative purposes only and are not a recommendation, offer to sell, or a solicitation of an offer to buy any security. Schwab does not recommend the use of technical analysis as a sole means of investment research. And investing involves risks, including the loss of principal. All right, so with those important disclosures accomplished, let's set an agenda for today's discussion. So today is all about looking at finding the news, developing headlines as rapidly as possible. And we're going to be going through 6 tools on the Thinkorswim desktop platform that might assist in that effort. And we want to tie those tools to market action. So I'm going to be placing some example trades along the way of different types, just so that we get acquainted with those sorts of tools as well. So by the time we're done, should have a good tool set for that trader or that investor who likes to keep tabs on what's happening in the news for the day. So let's pop over to Thinkorswim desktop. And as I do, so I'm going to start here on a chart of Apple. Some of you, though, are not familiar with this platform. You may not even have it on your computer at the moment. This is software that can be downloaded free of charge from within your Schwab Online account. So just a quick sidebar, if you don't have Thinkorswim desktop, you'll just pop over to your Schwab Online account. This is just an example online account. Go right up here to the Trade tab, and then over here under Trading Platforms, which is what Thinkorswim Desktop is, you'll see it says Thinkorswim Desktop. You click on that, scroll down just a little bit until you find a big blue button, and that will guide you through what Thinkorswim is and how to download it. Once you've downloaded it, you can just log into it using your Schwab username and password. But as you do, just as a little heads up, when you first log into Thinkorswim, down at the bottom of that login screen, it's going to ask you, well, are you here to do some live trading? Or do you want to access a paper money platform, which allows some practice trading in a no-risk environment? So you can choose between those two. But we're going to be now going to an example live account. It's a fake live account, but just to show you the navigation of this, let's go down to our Thinkorswim platform. And here we find ourselves on Apple, and let's start digging into how to track, how to find developing news, and maybe how a trader might connect that to trading those headlines. First couple of tools we're going to be using are going to be found over here on the left side of the platform. So right now we're on the Charts tab, but in the left side, there's kind of a hidden additional space, and it's known as the gadgets. So there's a little arrow here that will unhide those gadgets. Right now, I just have them hidden from view. If I click on that little arrow, you can hide and unhide the gadgets. And the one that we're going to be using is called Live News. And this really is, it's just a streaming feed of developing headlines that some traders like to keep an eye on. We can have it just very broad, so it's looking for any market-related news, or we can zero in on specific securities or even specific, like, let's say, watch lists or portfolio holdings, those kinds of things. So I'm going to add a gadget here. Let's come down here and click on the Add Gadget button. That's the plus sign. And I'm going to choose Live News right there. Now, by default, this is searching, it's using a number of different news feed services. And some of our, well, I would say probably a lot of my veteran watchers of these webcast series are already familiar with the Live News tool. They know that if we don't have a symbol in here, it'll just look across all symbols and just update as news is released from these different news services. But also, we can sort by specific stocks. So like, for example, if I type in a symbol Apple, now it's only going to be looking for developing news specific to Apple. Now, that can come from any of our channels, any of our news services, or we can select specific channels or services. So for example, maybe we don't want to see every service. Let's just look at Apple-related news from CNBC recently. There we go. We could go through these headlines. You'll notice there are some each day. Looks like the most recent one, this is July 8th as of the recording of this webcast. The last headline from this service was yesterday. If we want to see more details of that news, we can just click on that headline, and if there's an associated article, it'll bring up those article details. So already I think some may not have been aware that we can do that channel filter. I'm going to reorient this and just search all channels. Now there's another feature when looking for developing news not everyone's aware of. Let me expand my left column a little bit more so I can get a little bit more of the gadgets there. And we'll notice here next to the symbol box, we have a gear icon. And another thing I want to note over here is this little sort of tag looking icon. Let's use those two. First of all, the gear icon can allow us to apply what we call a filter. So we might think, well, we're stuck with just looking at all news, which may be maybe too broad for some traders' purposes, or just an individual symbol might be too narrow. Well, let's apply a different filter. Maybe we'll come down and look at looking through the news, developing news for maybe just, let's say, the S&P 500. So now we're filtering out maybe smaller capitalization stocks, looking at just those 500-ish companies that comprise the S&P 500 and any news there. And so now that filter, any filter, other additional filter we may have applied is now just looking at the S&P 500. And we're seeing those developing stories. Or we could even apply a filter for our own personal watch lists. For example, I've previously created a personal watch list for, well, all sorts of things. Let's say we want to look in just dividend stocks. So this is going to sort through and just look for news in that watch list. So I think this is going to be a new function for a familiar tool for a lot of you that may allow a more targeted tracking of developing news. Now, finally, let's go back up here. Let's clear this filter. A final thing that we might do is use this little tag here. Let me click on that. And as you'll notice, as I hover over it, it says search the news by a keyword. This is a keyword search. So how about we look for, and here are some top news keywords. We can look through keywords that we personally have used recently. I haven't used any recently in this example account. But what if we were looking for, let's say, analyst upgrades? Let's just type in the word upgrade, hit enter on our keyboard, and it takes a moment. What it's doing right now is searching through all the headlines. It's conducting a scan through all those headlines, and it finds any of those headlines that contains an analyst upgrade. So for example, here's a Wells Fargo upgrade to Old Dominion Freight Lines. So let's see what's going on with ODFL. We may not have been aware that there was a very recent, that is just today, analyst upgrade on ODFL. And so let's say that our trader here just discovered this developing news and they look at the chart and maybe they are a chartist and they see that ODFL has recently pulled down. Could it be at the bottom of a new downswing set to run up? We'll see. Time will tell. But how about we go place an example trade here? Let's say that our trader just is ready to buy this stock. How do we connect what we've found to execution? Well, I'm going to place a trade, and we could go over to the trade tab. Now, I'm kind of in the mood for showing new ways. Eva, you didn't know that there was a keyword search there? Absolutely my pleasure. And in the spirit of trying to find new things that even more veteran users of the platform might not be aware of, you might not be aware that you can actually place a trade right up here at the top of the chart. So I'm going to go up here to the current quote for ODFL and just click on it. And as I do that, that brings up a menu that allows me to buy or sell shares. I can put in custom orders. We're not going to get that fancy today, but let's just put in maybe a buy order for some shares of ODFL. So I'm going to put in a buy. Let me hide this left column for just a moment. By default, this is going to bring up an order to buy 100 shares of stock on this example account. Let's just crank this down. Let's just say that our trader just wants a little tiny position. How about we do 3 shares, about a $650 investment if we get an execution at current prices or close. But I'm going to change this to a different order type. Let's put in a market order here. Market order simply means I'm willing to pay whatever the market requires to get into this thing as fast as possible. So putting in an order to buy 3 ODFL shares at the market price. Let's click confirm and send. And let's do this. Buying 3 shares of ODFL. There's no commission on this example trade, but there can be on some types of trades. And I'm going to send that order off. And that gives us sort of our first example of tracking the news, finding developing headlines quickly, and placing a trade. Now, let's look at another gadget over here in the left column. And let's see if maybe I can deliver a few more surprises, even for more veteran users of this. Maybe not so much with this one, but we'll see. I'm going to switch our gadget. So initially, I added a gadget. We added the live news using the plus button down here. We can just switch to another gadget right here using this little menu icon. 3 dots, 3 dashes implies a menu. So if I click on that, let's switch this gadget. And I'm going to use something called Use the News. Now, what we've done already is we looked at live news. So we just looked at headlines. And they're organized by maybe our personal watch list, or they're organized by individual symbol, or just by all stocks, just coming in order chronologically. But let's choose Use the News. And what this does is it groups news, developing news, into different categories that might be interesting to a trader or investor. And it doesn't know which category we're interested in. There are actually 81 different categories. And they're grouped by sector. It can be by news type. But let's use our little tag feature here again. I'm going to click on this, and you can see the different categories. Sector, asset class, industry, event news, and all these different subcategories. So many. Now, if we have them all checked, that can get really, really busy, and it doesn't really narrow the field in a necessarily meaningful way for the trader. So I'm going to uncheck, or I'm just going to clear all the categories. And what if we just wanted to look at one? And I'm just going to stick with a common theme. It's not a suggested approach to the way that we might trade. Someone else might not have any interest in, let's say, analyst upgrades. Maybe they're interested in what's happening in, who knows, manufacturing or healthcare or whatever. But I'm going to scroll down, and let's sort the news again for analyst upgrades. Just check this box under trading ideas and just save that. And you'll notice there, it just lists our different symbols here. And if we looked over far enough, or maybe if we just widened this out far enough, there's Old Dominion. It's kind of tucked away there. I'm going to narrow that up again. Should we grab a different one? How about let's have a look at what's going on with Dollar Tree. Dollar Tree just got an analyst upgrade. We can click on that for the details of that upgrade. Looks like Goldman Sachs upgrades Dollar Tree to neutral from sell and raise their target price. We'll see if that pans out. But that was just this morning again. Well, let's see what's happening as a shareholder reaction. Interesting. Bit of a different shareholder reaction to this analyst upgrade. We see prices up a bit, kind of fading. We can see kind of a red candle. That means that we open higher. We're starting to move down a little bit. And let's just suppose maybe this trader has found this news. Maybe they're intrigued by it. But with momentum apparently fading at the moment, maybe they're waiting for prices to come down a little lower. And it looks like recently, over the last week or so, prices have only extended down to about $120. Let's just say our trader would be happy to buy if the stock were to fall down to 120, but not above that level. That's a different kind of order. So let's go put in that order. And this time I am going to go to the trade tab. I showed you we could actually, no, there's a different way we could do this. Let's do it differently. Could go to the trade tab, yes, and we could put in a Dollar Tree order right here. But let's stay here on our charts, and we can go instead over here to see where it says TRD for trade. If I click on that, it gives me pop-up right up here that allows me to buy or sell stocks right here from the chart tab. Again, different ways to do it. There are these sorts of features just sort of hidden all throughout the platform just to streamline the efforts of the trader, and they can do it however they prefer. But how about we just buy, should we just do one share of Dollar Tree? We can customize our quantity if we want here. But let's just say we're going to do not buy market, but we're going to put in an order to buy one share at, let's say, a limit order. All right, if you're not familiar with a limit order, let me click on the buy, and let's edit this so we make sure that this is a limit order. So let's talk about the distinction between a market order and a limit order, okay? So I'm buying, instead of just paying right now whatever the market requires, in this case, the trader may want to put a maximum per share amount that they're willing to spend. And in this case, let's do $120. Now, if we tie that back to our thoughts on the chart, maybe the trader is waiting for price to go back down to the lowest levels it's been over the last week or so, and maybe they think that's their improved opportunity for purchase. Otherwise, if the stock doesn't go down there, this is the danger of these sorts of orders. This order just won't fill. We're literally saying we want to buy for 120 bucks, not a penny more. The market doesn't. The market might deliver that price or it might not. But this order may not happen today. I'm going to change the time in force, TIF, from just a day order to good till canceled. As of the time of this recording, it's 12:18 Mountain Time. Now, here in the mountains of Utah, the markets close at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So there's only about an hour of trading left. That would be 4 o'clock Eastern Time, or an hour and 40 minutes of trading, basically. Let's say that we want to extend this order out so that if it doesn't fill today, maybe it'll fill tomorrow. Maybe it might fill after that. But when we put in a good till canceled order, this just remains in effect until we choose to cancel it. There's one other thing. Now, we could just confirm and send this. I'm trying to decide how fancy do I want to get with this. I think a lot of people watching know the difference between a market and a limit order, or pardon me, a market and a limit order, yes. A day and a good till canceled order, probably. But before we send this off, let's not leave this just dangling. Let's say I want this order to fill for $1.20 or for $120 or lower, good till canceled, but I'm going to choose the time at which it will be canceled. So I'm going to go over here, a little gear icon to the right. This is a condition that we can add. So let's click on the condition field. Here's our original order, buy one share at a limit price of $120, good till canceled. Well, I want to cancel this. Let's say we want to cancel that in a week. We click on a little calendar. Let's choose the 15th of July. We could specify the time of day. I'm not going to do that. And let's just save that. So yeah, we got a little extra fancy here, but then we can confirm and send that order. And let's go ahead, send this off, buying one share of Dollar Tree, $120 limit, good till canceled, cancel in a week at this moment, no commission on this trade. I'm going to send that order off. All right, so let's uncheck the box for the trade tab. So I've shown you how to put it on. Let's show you how to take that off. Let's move on to our third tool. But before we do that, I've noticed here that there is a survey that's been added to the chat window for those who are here in the live stream audience. So if you are here live, make sure that you click that survey link there in the chat window and just fill the survey out when the webcast is over, when you give me some honest feedback. What I will tell you about the survey is it's really short. 2 questions and then a comment box and a suggestion box if you want to leave a comment or a suggestion. But what I'll also say about that survey is that it helps. It doesn't just disappear into the abyss. I read through that data, I read through your comments, and it does help. All right, so thanks for doing that for me. But back to tool number 3. So far, live news, use the news. Well, what if we wanted to set an alert so that we get notified if some news comes out on a stock that we're trying to keep an eye on? How do we do that? Let's maybe go back over here to Apple for just a moment. I'm using it. It's one of the biggest companies in the world, depending on the day of the week, I guess. Been doing pretty well so far. But let's say that we wanted to add a news alert to this stock. Well, here's the way we might do that. I'm going to right click on my chart. Doesn't matter where, just right click somewhere on the chart and I get a pop-up menu. And this is one way to add an alert. Lots of different ways we could add an alert. But within this pop-up, you'll notice right down here at the bottom, there's a little bell that says Create Alert. So when I select that, I get this big screen to work with. And let's just start upper left and move down to the bottom, fill this thing out completely. First of all, it says notify me on what? A price condition? If price rises above a certain level? No. Let's get a news notification. Well, which source do we want that news to come from? All sources or just one specific news provider? Let's go for all sources. Do we want news from all sources on all symbols and just light up our account? No, let's say that we want it to just be a single symbol, and in this case, Apple. Now, we have these 2 radio buttons. Notify of each new, another way you might say this is notify me of each news item from these providers. That's basically all the providers. So do I want a news alert every time there's news that comes out on Apple, or do I just want the next one? Now, some traders do want to be notified. It might happen on some stocks once or twice a day, 3 times a day. Could be more than that, depending on which stock we're dealing with. How about we just set this up for just the next one? Next time we get some news, let me know about it. I'll come back and set up the alert again if I want to know about the one after that. Then we can tell the system, how do we want to be notified? Well, if we happen to be on Thinkorswim at the moment, it can play a little sound for us. Could be a bell, or we can get what are called push notifications. Push notifications is like a text or an email. Now, I could set that up. I actually haven't done that. Haven't even set this account up to receive those sorts of notifications. So let me show you that in just a moment here. But finally, down at the bottom, we can select the time frame for which we want to receive those alerts. Do we want them to be ongoing, or do we want to start them at a specific time? Do we want to end them at a specific time? And then we could create that alert. But as I do that, I just want to come back here to this idea of getting notifications. And this account is not currently structured for that. How do we get notifications? Well, we come up here and we go to our general application settings for the entire platform. And I'm going to go to notifications right here. And then this is where we can select it. We can enter an email here to get notifications at that email, or we could add a number for texts. I'm not going to do that for this example account. I don't want to get bugged with texts or emails. So there we go. That's how we can set an alert. So that's tool number 3 for tracking the news. So even when we're not on the platform, we can be keeping an eye on the news. Now, tool number 4 is back over here to the margin. We've already looked at the trade functionality here. Well, down at the bottom, there's an abbreviation, N. What do you suppose that means? Go away, level 2. Yeah, the N is for live news for whatever stock we have on the chart at the moment. So if I click on the N, I can keep an eye on what's happening with the chart, but I can also keep an eye on any developing news for that stock. And of course, I can tailor that by the channel or the news provider. And then if I want to find something like, let's see, Apple unveils a $30 billion Broadcom deal. I wonder what the details of that might be. That just came out this morning. If I click on that, that will bring up the article related to that headline. So again, quick way to keep an eye on the news. That's nifty little tool number 4, and you can see how quickly this navigation might be accomplished moving from one tool to the next. So let's remove the news, just like with the trade function. We just click on it and click again to remove it. So let's click on the N for news, and it disappears. Moving on to tool number 5. Let's go look at the Market Watch, what's known as the calendar. Now, by the way, when we've set up an alert on the Market Watch tab, we can track our alerts right there. I just wanted to make that note, but I'm going to move down here to the calendar. And boy, look at this. Looks like, what does that look like? Somebody spilled a bunch of candy on the screen. Very busy tool initially because it doesn't know what we're looking for as far as news is concerned. So we need to apply some filtering here to narrow it down. But this is a calendar of upcoming events. We can look at this on a day-to-day basis, on a week-to-week basis, on a monthly basis. I'm going to leave it here on the month, but I want to narrow that down so I get a quick visual overview of what's happening over the course of this 30-day period. And we can advance one month at a time or retrace 1 month at a time right here. But we need to zero in on what we're looking for. Couple of tips there. Number 1 is right now, it's showing us just about anything that could be news related. Dividend related news, earnings news, conference calls, stock splits, econo dates and econo day events, and so on. Let's just say in this case, we're looking for something like, how about earnings announcements? Maybe we're one of those traders who likes to trade over earnings. Not everybody does, but let's uncheck this box for show all, and let's just look for earnings. Well, even with earnings, there are thousands and thousands and thousands of stocks trading out there. Lots of companies announcing earnings. Let's narrow the field a little bit further. I wonder, let's pop up here to our gear icon, and I'm going to click on this. And again, we can have access to our personal watch list. We could just look for earnings that are upcoming on stocks that we've been following. Or let's go again to the public watch list that Thinkorswim constructs and provides. And let's look to the S&P 500. Looks like there are quite a few S&P 500 companies announcing earnings this month. And right here's the 8th, even next Wednesday. A lot of announcements. How about we narrow that further? Let's look at maybe just the S&P 100. There we go. All right, so looks like we have coming up next week, Johnson & Johnson, we have General Electric, we have United Health, we have Intuitive Surgical, Netflix, and so on. Now, MBH just asked a good question, and I have to be specific here. The functionality that I'm demonstrating here is on Thinkorswim Desktop. There are actually 3 versions of Thinkorswim. There's Thinkorswim Desktop being demonstrated right now. There's Thinkorswim Mobile, and there's Thinkorswim Web. So mobile, obviously, is a mobile app for your phone. Thinkorswim Web is a browser-based version of Thinkorswim. Web and mobile are very much streamlined. I would say stripped down to the sort of basics. That definitely has advantages. It also has certainly drawbacks for those that want more tools. So if you're trying to follow along, but you're on one of those other platforms, it's not going to look like this. All right, anyway, let's suppose, okay, there's Netflix coming up. Let's go to the chart of Netflix. So there's that earnings announcement approaching. Well, Netflix has not been doing terribly well, but that's okay. Let's just say that our trader thinks this may be a turnaround event, but they're not sure. And maybe their first suspicion is, if this could be positive enough to push us back up at least above these highs, let's say get up to $80 in this case, clearly just a hypothetical, maybe then they want to buy. So let's be specific here. The earnings announcement is on the 16th. Let's say they want to, and that looks like it's after market close on the 16th. So maybe their plan is if the stock is trading above $80 on the 17th as a reaction to the earnings announcement, maybe they think that momentum might carry the stock higher. Obviously, I don't know if that's going to actually happen or not. Even if it gets up to 80, maybe the stock fades. But not lots, I don't know, can't speak for everybody, but there are certainly traders who trade on earnings announcements. But I mostly want to use this as a setup for a discussion of once we have a concept for a trade, how do we put that into action on the platform? Let's go put in a trade. This time I'm just going to go to the plain old trade tab. And let's make sure that we've entered Netflix. And let's put in an order to buy the stock if it's above 80 on the 17th. How do we do that? First of all, we need to create the order to buy. So I'm going to come here to the ask price and click on that. That creates that buy order. Let's again just do one example share. And I'm going to put in a different type of order. In this case, I'm going to put in a stop order. Now, you might associate a stop as a sell order. Isn't that when you bought a stock and you're trying to sell it if the price is falling? Not always. For some traders, it's to buy the stock if it's rising. It's like, hey, that bus is going in the direction that I want to travel. Stop the bus. I want to get on. All right? So this is known as a buy stop, but we're going to put a condition on here. First of all, our intention was to buy it at $80, but even then, not right now. We want to wait. Let's come over here and put on another condition. So let's put on our order condition. Let's put in a buy stop at $80. We're going to put this on good till canceled, but we're going to submit it on a specific day. In this case, we're going to put it on for the 17th. All right. And that's, how about we put this in at 7:30. Why am I choosing 7:30? Well, as I mentioned, I'm here in the mountains of Utah. 7:30 is when the market opens. So I'm putting in an order to buy at $80 if Netflix has gone to $80 or higher. It's a buy stop order. Now, if it doesn't fill, let's say our trader wants to give it a little time to work. Let's cancel that order, maybe the following Monday. So it's going in on a Friday after that earnings announcement. If it's not trading up above 80, we're not going to sit around waiting for it. Let's say we just cancel it midday on Monday. All right, so let's click save. Let's click confirm and send. So we're putting in a buy stop, buying one Netflix at a stop of $80, good till canceled, to be submitted on July 17th, first thing in the morning, canceled July 20th, midday. We either get it above $80, now it could be $85. All this does with a stop order, with a sell order, we're not guaranteed that we'll sell at a specific price. With a buy stop order, we're not guaranteed that we'll buy at a specific price. This is just a trigger. If it happens to pop above 80, buy. Now it's possible. It could even sag right down and we buy below 80 in the moments while we're waiting to get filled. But probably more likely it would just be above $80. All right, and then we can send that order off. No commission on this trade as we've done before, but let's send that order off. All right, so there are 5 tools. Some are familiar, some are not. Let's get acquainted with one more, and this is a scan tool. Someone's asked me a question before. Cameron, can we scan for news events? Yes, can scan for news events. However, it has to be on the live platform. Paper Money can't do it. So we're going to go to the scan tab here on our example live platform, and let's just sort of build one out. How about, well, let's direct this scan not to look in all stocks. Let's start to narrow the field a little bit. Let's go to the public watch list again and look through just to sort of be consistent with the rest of the discussion. Let's look in the S&P 500. And then among S&P 500 companies, let's just say we're looking for, I don't know, let's look for a market cap of at least, who knows, let's say 10,000 million. What does that mean? $10 billion. Yep. Market cap is in millions of dollars, so 10,000 million would be a minimum of 10 billion. Let's say that our trader is looking, this is just an example trader or investor. Let's say they're keeping an eye on what they perceive as a value metric, like price to earnings. Maybe they don't want the price to be more than 25 times last year's earnings. So let's put in a PE maximum of 25 as an example. And let's say they're also interested in finding maybe stocks that are paying dividends. Average S&P 500 dividend yield is just a little bit over 1%. Let's say we're looking for maybe at least 1.5%. There we go. So there's just obviously just some sort of broad stroke introduction to how to use the tool kind of criteria. But now let's search the news for S&P $10 billion companies with a PE below 25 and yield over 1.5%. Let's look at the news. Here's how you scan the news on Thinkorswim. Go up here to where it says Add Filter, and I'm going to add a study filter. And specifically, this study is going to be, let's click on the little menu right here, which just starts alphabetically at the top, ADX crossover. And I'm going to go up to corporate actions. Now, if you're not familiar with a corporate action, it is literally an action that a corporation takes that has an impact on its price, on its stock price in one way or another. So like a stock split or a dividend payment or an earnings announcement can certainly have an impact on price. So let's look for dividends. And as we select that from our study menu, you'll notice it says, let's just sort of read this as a sentence. So our stock, or the stock we're looking for, has an ex-dividend date in the next 5 what? It says bars. What is a bar? Well, that's determined over here. So we could choose the next 5 weeks. We could choose the next 5 days. Let's just sort of leave it at 5 days. All right. And so what this is going to do again is look for any stocks meeting whatever criteria we first required that are paying a dividend in the next 5 days. So let's click scan and see what we get. And it looks like there are about 8 of the S&P 500 companies are paying a dividend the next 5 days. Well, that's kind of cool. Another kind of scan that we can run, let's switch this up again. Instead of dividends, maybe we're looking to see if there's an earnings announcement. Again, maybe this is a trader who could be that they're looking to trade the earnings. It could be that they're looking to avoid the earnings. I don't know what their motivation is. I would assume it's probably going to be for trading, but let's go here. Let's switch our corporate action to earnings. And let's say we're looking for companies that have an earnings announcement at any time. That just means before market or after market close in the next, how about 7, this would be 7 business or trading days, 7 bars. Okay. So let's just hit scan and see how many of those companies. Look like quite a few. So in the next 7 business days, bunch of companies out there that are $10 billion companies that have a PE ratio below 25 and a dividend of 1.5%, they're announcing earnings. So obviously all of this just example criteria, but it was to address the question, as we're following news, can we scan for news? Yes. Now, obviously we can't scan for news that is unpredictable. We don't know, is there going to be an upgrade, for example, in the next 2 or 3 days? Don't know about those unpredictable things, but for things that are on a calendar, that's searchable. All right, guys, but with that, we've actually accomplished everything that I set out to do today. I wanted to introduce you to 6 tools that might be used by a trader to more quickly track the news and maybe trade those headlines. And then with some of those tools, we connected those to action, showed you how to place different types of orders on the Thinkorswim desktop platform. So this is what we do when we get together on Wednesdays. So you're certainly invited to join me in the live stream each Wednesday. Again, it kicks off at 2 o'clock Eastern time. If you can't make it, that's great. Watch the archive. So that's a good reminder that if you're new to our Trader Talks channel here on YouTube, make sure that you've subscribed. You can pop down below the video stream right now and just click on the subscribe button. It only takes a second to do that. It doesn't cost anything to do that. But this is where you can join the live streams. So again, the name of our channel is Trader Talks Schwab Coaching Webcast. So you can join the live streams right here on our channel homepage, or you can find playlists of previous webcasts. And I do have a suggestion for you. If you are new to Thinkorswim, which is the topic of this webcast series, I put together a structured series of lessons. It's 8 videos to introduce you to Thinkorswim and to sort of look into all the little details of the navigation of Thinkorswim, make you a lot more comfortable with the platform. So to find that, you go to the playlists and just scroll down a little bit. We have a bunch of different webcast series, and the one you're looking for is going to have this. It says, new to Thinkorswim platform, start here. And if you click on view full playlist, you'll see there are 8 lessons. And for your benefit here, this is just for quick reference, I'm going to post a link in the chat. There we go. Let me just copy this, post it in the chat. So there's a link that'll take you straight to that 8-part video series of lessons for learning about Thinkorswim. If you're watching on the archive, that's okay. Just go down into the video description. I'll post it down there as well. Now, second suggestion that I have for you here, while you're on the home page of our Trader Talks channel, looking at the playlists again, if you want to find the rest of this webcast series, so you have the 8 structured lessons, but that's not what I do every week. Just like this week, sometimes I'll pick a specific topic like tracking the news and then show you all sorts of tools relating to that. To find the archives for the entire series, just scroll down. It's actually all the way down at the bottom. Getting started with Thinkorswim, I'm going to click on View Full Playlist, and there's my whole webcast series. All right. And yeah, let me just go ahead and let's put in a link for the chat for that as well. Paste that in the chat, and I'll put that in the video description for those that are watching on the archive. So yes, number one, if you're really trying to get the most out of Schwab education, make sure that you are subscribed to our Trader Talks channel. But if you want to communicate with your favorite Schwab presenters in between the presentations, social media is the way to do that. Go to X or go to LinkedIn. So Barb and I want to invite you to follow us on X. You can find and follow Barb there at Barb Armstrong CS. You can find and follow me on X at Cameron May CS. So here's my X profile. There it is. That's the guy you're looking for. Different colored beard back in the day. There's my handle. And if you follow me here, and if you're replying to my posts, I just try to reply right back to you. Like this morning, I was in here. I actually just forwarded a nice post by Brent. But this morning I was replying to some comments here on this chart example that I had posted. And it just allows for that sort of interaction when the camera's not on. But you can also do that on LinkedIn. Just go to linkedin.com/in/CameronMayCS. So here's my LinkedIn profile, and if you reply or comment there, I just reply right back to your comments, and I definitely appreciate that sort of access to my audience in between the live streams. All right, time for me to let you go. Thanks to everybody that's already given a thumbs up to this video or this discussion. That's always appreciated. Whether you're live or you're watching on the archive, if you enjoy a webcast, make sure you're clicking that like button. It helps. It actually gives a boost to the video every time in the YouTube algorithm, helps more people find these discussions. So thank you for doing that. And finally, oh, and Katie, you say you're a newbie from Camas. You talking about Camas, Utah? I was just out in Camas, I think maybe a week ago. I go out there all the time. Beautiful area. Anyway, just on my way up the Mirror Lake Highway. But a final heads up is that there is a survey for our live attendees. So if you haven't done it yet, click on that survey link, fill out that survey, 2 questions, multiple, and then there's just let's say a comments box and a suggestion box. If you fill that out, I'll read that stuff. It definitely helps. So thanks, everybody. I will see you next Wednesday for another discussion of getting started with Thinkorswim. I have other webcasts on a whole range of trading and investing topics every day of the week. Look for a new webcast from me. So I'll see you there. I'll also look for you on social media, on X or on LinkedIn. But whenever I see you again, until that moment arrives, I want to wish you the very best of luck. Happy trading. Bye-bye.